This video is brought to you by Grainger Warranty, your #1 online source for factory-backed extended warranties in the country.
A Dodge muscle car and internal combustion go together like a boat in the water, like a cow in grass, or like Tommy and the 5 hot dogs that he has for lunch at work every day. This is our first chance to drive the new 3-liter Hurricane-powered Dodge Charger at Tail of the Dragon of all places. As you approach the front of a Sixpack powered Charger, as they're calling these, the hood actually greets you with a badge that says Sixpack and it faces toward the driver, which is kind of cool. And popping open that hood, you can see a little bit of the 3-liter Hurricane inline 6 powering this car. This particular model is a Scat Pack. We've got a high output version of the 3-liter Hurricane, 550 horsepower, 531 pound-feet of torque, and an 8-speed automatic. The other thing that's great about these cars is they're standard all-wheel drive, but you've got a rear-wheel drive mode if you want to do donuts, things like that. And if you get a standard output version of the 3-liter Hurricane, it's still 420 horsepower, 468 pound-feet of torque, which is also not a small number. Now, if you are shopping for a brand new or even a used car, something like one of these new Sixpack Chargers, then I highly recommend you check out Grainger Warranties. Because with a Grainger warranty, you can save money compared to other warranties, and especially compared to fixing your car yourself on your own dime. And they use factory-trained technicians, OEM parts, so your car gets fixed up just like it was when it was brand new. So it's a great deal for the long run, and you can check out Grainger Warranties in the link in the description below. Now, this wouldn't be a Dodge muscle car review if we didn't very early on start it up and let you listen to how it sounds. If you ask me, there are 3 fundamental components of a muscle car. The stance of it from the outside, straight line acceleration. So let's drop a gear, maybe drop one more. Yeah. It gives you a good push in the back. There's a lot of torque in this powertrain, as you would expect. 531 pound-feet of torque. It's not neck-snapping acceleration, but it builds up as this big wave pushes you in the back and gets you moving. So it's definitely got the acceleration that you would expect from a muscle car. But the third thing I would argue you definitely need in a muscle car is sound. And this Charger definitely has sound. It's just not the traditional muscle car sound. A 3-liter straight 6 turbo is something that these days we more so associate with a BMW or any kind of sportier import car, not so much the domestic side of things. And that is a little bit of a hurdle for this vehicle because the old Charger is so closely linked to the feeling of that V8 rumble, and this, it's a very different noise. You can tell they've put some energy into giving this car a sound. It's just not the sound I think most people would expect from this vehicle from the look of it. That being said, on paper, this is a very impressive powertrain. The way that it's engineered and built up, it's got some forged internals, it's got 2 54mm Garrett turbos that peak out around 30 pounds of boost, which from a bone stock gas engine, 30 PSI of boost is a ton. So this is an impressive powertrain. There's no doubt about that. And 550 horsepower is tons. It's as much or more power than anybody needs. It just doesn't have the same character as a V8. Let's talk a moment about styling, because a big part of a muscle car is the stance of the vehicle itself. And from the exterior, I would argue that this 100% has that stance. This car is a whole 2 inches wider than the old wide body chargers. So it's a massive footprint to the vehicle itself, and from the front end it's got a very recognizable headlight design, daytime running light design. They've changed up a few specific elements of the styling from the electric charger to this vehicle, so it doesn't have the same wing design to funnel air through that the electric one does, because you've got to fit a combustion engine under that hood. So those are the ways in which the front end has changed. But that being said, at a glance, it still looks very much like the electric version of the Charger and is very modern and sharp. But the other thing you notice immediately from the exterior of the car is just how massive it is. They're saying about 121-inch wheelbase, which if I walk all the way down the length of the car, it's several paces. It's a very long vehicle. 121 inches is more like the wheelbase that you would expect on an SUV than anything you would expect from a two-door. And this is the same wheelbase that you're going to get even if you opt for a four-door version of the car. The rear end of this car is very traditional Charger, from the roof line to the very vertical drop-off at the rear of the vehicle. And I love the lip spoiler they've included as well. This being a gas-powered Charger, you're also going to find exhaust tips where, of course, the electric model would not have had anything. And they hide it well, but this car is also a hatch, which you might not expect when you first walk up to it. Opening the hatch on the new Charger reveals an absolutely massive trunk. It is sloped a little bit, so it's maybe not the tallest space, but it is deep and long and wide. There's lots of room back here, especially if you fold down that second row of seats. This becomes more akin to a hatchback or even a station wagon with the amount of space that's back here. So I struggle to see many people at all that would have a need for a bigger trunk than what you get in the Charger. That being said, there is one thing we're missing that I wish we had, and that would be some form of spare tire. And that brings me to today's sponsor, Modern Spare. You see, almost half of the new cars sold in North America don't come with spare tires, and it's still a very important thing to bring along with you, especially if you're going to go on long road trips. It's a nice thing to have. And the cool thing about the kit from Modern Spare is that it gives you all the tools that you need, as well as a really well-designed spare tire. So this is not just a limp you to the nearest tire station kit. Those tires can actually go some pretty long distances if they have to. So it's a really cool kit. And even if you don't see your vehicle listed on Modern Spare's website, you can go call them and check for availability for your vehicle. So if Modern Spare is something that you're interested in, check them out using the link below. Closing the hatch is a little odd because you look up expecting to see a button to close it there, but instead it's a little hidden here at the side of the trunk instead. The way that the all-wheel drive system on this Charger works is pretty advanced and really cool. In auto mode, you have as much as a 50-50 power split front and rear, which is great for traction, especially in inclement weather. But if you go into sport mode, instead, it will do a 40-60 split. And that's, of course, unless you select a rear-wheel drive only mode, in which case it truly sends 100% of the power to the rear. But even when you're driving around normally in auto mode, there's a front axle disconnect that helps you save a little bit of fuel by lowering the amount of rolling resistance and the amount of driveline that you're actually spinning. So this all-wheel drive system has lots of different settings that it can operate in, and that means that this is not only a fun car that you could do burnouts in and that you could do power slides in, but it also means that it's a four-season car. Now we're actually starting up the iconic tail of the Dragon. This is the whole reason that we came to the Southeast, was for this road. And it's an interesting choice for this car because it is a pretty narrow and tight stretch of pavement. And this, once again, is not a tiny car, but it handles its weight, especially once again with 305 width tires. There's so much rubber under this vehicle. It's definitely got some traction, also partly because it's around a 5,000 pound car. So look, you're not going to get around the fact that this is a big heavy car. It doesn't handle like a Lotus or anything tiny and very, very precise like that Miata that's going by, but it's still a fun handling car. The other nice thing about driving this car on this stretch of road is that the torque from this powertrain is available very low in the rev range. So they say at about 2,500 RPM, you've got 88% of that torque available to you. So even when I lug the motor a little bit, it really doesn't take that long to spool up. You see a lot of Miatas on this stretch of pavement. We are right now in the anti-Miata. We've got tons of power, tons of torque, and tons. You need a little more evidence of how big this car is than to just look at the width of the front tire even. This is a square setup, so there are 305s in the front and in the rear. And the body of this car absolutely dwarfs these 20-inch wheels. Arguably the biggest upgrade from the previous Charger to what we have now is the interior, because this is way more futuristic, way more current, really, because the old interior looked very dated. This one does not have that problem. The entire dash design is really cool. There's tons of ambient lighting that you can really see at night, which I love, but it goes all the way from the door card up and over the dash and looks awesome. And while I am a fan of analog gauges and some slightly more old school touches, if you're gonna do screens, you might as well do them right. There's a 12.3-inch screen standard in the center with Uconnect, which is not a bad system to have at all. You've got shortcuts for heated seat, ventilated seat, and heated steering wheel. Dedicated panel for climate controls below that screen. They're not individual buttons, they are touch-sensitive controls, but still works pretty well. Physical switches here on the steering wheel for navigating the 16-inch screen that's in front of me on this much more highly optioned Charger. Base cars have a 10.25-inch screen instead, and overall, design and materials are really good. The ergonomics of the steering wheel at low speeds through parking lots can be a little interesting because it is very squared off, but it gives the steering wheel a pretty cool appearance. I love the old school pistol grip style shifter, so there's no push buttons, there's no rotary dial. It's a little more traditional, which I like. And the center console is mostly pretty clean. Otherwise, besides the shifter, there's this start-stop button, there's your parking brake switch, but not much else, which makes it pretty clean. This Charger also has a massive tinted glass roof. It's tinted enough that even on a sunny day, you're not going to get cooked on the interior of this car so much, but I do wish they included a button where you could either make it a little bit clearer and then darken it like you get in some other cars, but I understand that that adds cost. The downside of this being a two-door Charger is the ingress getting to the back seats. When you fold it forward, the seat powers itself towards the front of the car to give you a little bit more room. And once you let that happen, it's a reasonably large space that you can move through, which makes sense because this is a large car. And because of that, sitting in the back seat, you really have quite a bit of space. I'm not really struggling so much for leg room, so there's no issues there. Headroom, also not bad, even with this sloped roofline. And there's a couple pretty nice amenities. There's heated seats here in the rear on this model, 2 USB-C ports, and your own climate vents. So this is a reasonably comfortable space to set passengers in for even pretty long drives.
To demonstrate the rear-wheel drive only drift mode in the new Charger, Dodge sent us out onto a closed course with some driving instructors so that we could play around with some of the different settings.
Nothing I do is that graceful, but you know,
the hang of it. I mean, you're getting the feel. Good.
You know you've got some power when you can get a 305 to break loose like that.
See if you can do a donut there. Perfect. Yeah, you look good.
You can't be mad when a day at work involves sliding around in a 550 horsepower Charger. I want to love this new Charger 6-pack and not write it off just because it has 6 cylinders instead of 8. And I do love the things that this engine does on paper. The amount of power and torque and boost, that's all awesome. And I really like this all-wheel drive system. And I really like the way that the car looks. it is just at the end of the day, for me, missing a little bit of that personality, that X factor that makes it that much more fun to drive. That being said, if you can get past that, if you drive this car and you love the way that it drives, you can really get quite a bit of power for the money. If you're looking at a more base RT model, that comes in right around $50,000. If you want 550 horsepower, it comes in right about 55. And of course, there is still the top of the line 670 horsepower Charger Daytona, so the electric version of this, for around 60 grand. So lots of different Chargers, 2-door, 4-door, straight 6, electric, and maybe at some point down the line a V8 as well, though that remains to be seen. As for now, the 6-pack Charger does a lot of things really well, and it's at least worth some consideration. But let me know what you think in the comments below. That's all for this video, and we'll see you next time.